Thank you guys for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for joining me for the conclusion of building this bed frame. It has been a year in the making, which is far too long. It should have been done much quicker than that, but you know, lots of stuff happened. At any rate, thank you for joining me on the conclusion. I really appreciate it. I learned an absolute ton doing this project from start to finish. At the end of each one of my episodes, you can see some of those lessons that I learned for the previous two steps. For this particular finishing step, I learned a lot as well, and some of those things that I learned are as follows. One, when you're doing your sanding, you really want to make sure that you do it all before you assemble it. And this may sound like a pretty obvious thing if you've done any of this assembly before, but one of the things that I ran into is that when you don't finish everything before you assemble it, you just have all of these nooks and crannies that you now need to get into to try and get wood glue out, get things sanded. I mean, you literally have 90-degree corners that you're trying to sand into, and sometimes you can't avoid that, but in this case, I could have avoided a lot of that hassle had I just sanded all of the parts before I actually assembled it. My thinking was I'm going to have some wood glue that I'm going to need to sand off because of the leakage at each one of the joints. The benefit of having no glue or having glue at the point of sanding off and trying to get into all of the nooks and crannies was far outweighed. Like, you can just be much more careful with the glue, really just wipe it up with a wet rag and be very judicious about getting all of that glue up, and you will have hardly any work to do at the end. So I highly recommend sanding your projects before assembling them, and it is something that I will be doing in the future. The second thing that I learned, and you can also see this in one of my previous videos, is that when you're doing a large spray job with lacquer, you are going to get lacquer fumes and overspray absolutely everywhere. Now, the HVLP gun does a pretty good job of reducing the amount of overspray and bounce back that you get, but you are still going to get some of it. And so if you have the ability to spray outside, do it, because it's going to be a lot easier. The challenge you're going to run into is dust, wind, and bugs, and lacquer dries fast enough that those aren't generally an issue, but it really depends. Yeah, otherwise you're going to need to get a lot of ventilation in your shop or have a built-in area where you have plenty of ventilation. So the third thing that I learned, and this is more an interesting thing for me, I was shooting Sherwin-Williams high build lacquer, and then I was using just kind of generic lacquer thinner with it. I also purchased the retarder from Sherwin-Williams. I think it's the 2-butatin, I don't even remember. I'll put it down here. But I bought the retarder because my shop, even right now, is 67 degrees and 60% humidity, which is supposed to be way too humid to spray anything in the shop. I didn't have any issues with blushing. I don't know if it's just me or if it's something about the day that I was shooting in. I mean, it's pretty beautiful weather outside, but I didn't have any issues with blushing at all. And maybe it's just because I wasn't going thick enough or I was doing something wrong. I don't really know. If you are really familiar with spraying lacquer, I would love to hear your feedback in the comment section down below to see if there was anything that I was doing that was funny or anything else, but I would really appreciate your feedback. At any rate, those are three of some of the big things that I learned during this final stage of the project. I'm gonna go ahead and put together a recap video that has everything all the way through, kind of start to finish, for building this bed frame so that you guys can see the thing all in one condensed video, and I'll get that released pretty soon. So thank you guys for joining. If you have any questions about this stage or for spraying lacquer, go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below and I'll make sure to get back to you. And otherwise, thank you guys tons for joining. I really appreciate it. If you like the kind of content we're producing here at Northwest Craftsman, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Love to have you as a part of the community, and just thank you guys tons. I really appreciate it. All right, we'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye.